The Hawks advancing to the final weekend for the first time in 30 years, taking out Louisville last night, 97-83. Clark had 41 points, 10 rebounds, 12 assists. The first player ever to have a 40-point triple-double with 8 or more made threes in the men's or women's NCAA tourney, the NBA playoffs, or the WNBA playoffs. By that measure, the greatest single performance ever in American basketball's postseason. So the Hawks move on to the Final Four in Dallas on Friday night.
Caitlin, the Iowa Hawkeyes are going to the Final Four. How good does that sound?
I mean, it's incredible. I really don't think it's really sunk in yet. This is everything we've dreamed of, but, we worked so hard for it. It doesn't just happen. It's, we've had a lot of ups and downs in my 3 years here, a lot of hard moments, a lot of really good moments, but this is the one we wanted the most, is this. So I'm just so happy for this group more than anything. Like I said, I don't think it's sunk in, probably won't for a while, but I'm just going to try to enjoy every single second of this next week that we get to go to Dallas and play in the Final Four.
Yes, you should. So you leave the game at the end of the fourth there. Mm-hmm. You walk down the line. You get all of those hugs. Mm-hmm. You have a triple-double with 40-plus points. What are you feeling at that point?
Honestly, just happy we won. I think that's just the biggest thing. It got a little tense there at the end of the fourth quarter. They never gave up, and that's exactly what you would expect in, a situation like that and from a team like that. But, embracing the coaches that believed in me since I was recruited here, and, my teammates who, have given an arm and leg for me, and I've done the same for them. And, that's what makes this team special, is because we have a, love for one another. No person to your right and to your left is more important, and we truly believe that. And that's what, has led us to this point.
How much was getting to the Final Four on the list of goals this year?
Oh, it was right up there at the top, but we also understood, this can't be our sole focus all year long. You have to, find a way to, be successful from game to game. We always say one win at a time. We're just focused on one game in front of us, and obviously, we've had other ups and downs. We lost a few early, especially in the season, but, we win a lot of big ones at the end. We got hot at the right time, and I think that's always what, Coach Bluter has our teams doing, is playing really good basketball at the end of the year. We wanted to be Big Ten champions. We did that, and we wanted to make the Final Four, and we did that. But we're lucky enough to go play another basketball game, so why not go win 2 more?
Why not go win 2 more? Has it sunk in yet?
No, it hasn't. I don't think it will, probably until after the season's over. But like I said, I'm just going to have a ton of fun with my teammates and enjoy this, because this is such a hard spot to get to.
Congrats, Caitlin. An amazing win, incredible performance. Wishing you the best of luck in Dallas. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the Hawks are on to that Final Four in Dallas Friday night. They will face the winner of Maryland and South Carolina. That game is tonight. Ohio State plays in the Elite Eight tonight as well against Virginia Tech. Megan McEwen will join me later in the show to talk all of it over. So plenty more women's hoops still to come. Let's turn our attention now to the men, a deep and competitive Big Ten this season. You have 12 teams finishing at least 500, a record number of upsets by seed in the conference tourney. We had some great individual stars. Truth of the matter is, though, conferences are judged in large part by the NCAA tourney. It's the 3rd straight year the Big Ten has failed to reach the Final Four. Only had 1 team in the Elite Eight out of 26 bids in that stretch. So Andy's here. We'll get into the postseason part of it here in a second. I don't know that the two are able to be separated, but how would you kind of assess big picture the state of the Big Ten, particularly in light of the regular season this year?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, both things can be true. We've said this before on this show. The Big Ten had a phenomenal regular season. They did a year ago as well. Did not have a great postseason in the NCAA tournament. You can't take anything away. It was still arguably, with the Big 12, I think it's without question, they were the 2 best, most competitive elite conferences. Top of the SEC was really good, not the depth. ACC, I don't care they got Miami in. They did not have a great year. The bottom of the ACC, really the middle of the ACC, really struggled. And so you look at this Final Four. Obviously, it's an odd year. Last year we had Blue Bloods, Duke, Carolina, Kansas, Villanova. This year, San Diego State, Mountain West, Florida Atlantic Conference USA, a Miami team that is not one of the traditional powers in the ACC, and then UConn, which obviously has had great moments, won multiple national championships, and then it's had some downtime, but out of the Big East. No Big 12, no Big 10, no SEC, no Pac 12. And I will say this. In this NCAA tournament, really, to me, Purdue was the only team that clearly underperformed in that loss to FDU. The 4-5 game with Indiana, Miami, to me, 4-5s are a wash.
Right.
8-9s are a wash. Michigan State, I was there. They were deserving. They were within a free throw or two of getting to the Final Four. Getting to the Elite Eight, and I think they probably would have beaten Florida Atlantic. And they were playing their best basketball at the right time. Would the narrative have changed if Michigan State had gotten to the Final Four? Maybe. I think, unfortunately, Purdue kind of clouded it all because of the way they played against FDU and it being a 16-1.
And I think it's different than in the past years. Tom Izzo kind of said this in his postgame after their loss to Kansas State, that the die was really cast during the regular season because there weren't teams that separated themselves other than Purdue. So he made the point that it was really more about the seedings. And to your point, and I mentioned this when we discussed this last week with Raphael, you had 3 Big Ten teams perform exactly to their seed. You had 3 Big Ten teams underperform their seed, and actually 2 overperform. Michigan State would be one of them, Penn State the other. The problem is no one overperformed to the point where they got to the Final Four, and to your point, Purdue kind of grossly underperformed their seed just in terms of the expected number of wins. You'd expect the 1 seed to win 4. They win 0. And so that is different than a couple of years ago where you had 2 1 seeds and 2 2 seeds and did get into the Final Four. I think you look at this bracket and don't necessarily think the expectation is there, but why wasn't the expectation there? In other words, why was the Big Ten different than it was 2 years ago, or even to a certain extent a season ago, where you did have these teams that were 1 seeds or 2 seeds or 3 seeds, whereas this year you just had a 1 or a 4? Is there something bigger picture going on, or is this just you had Ohio State, who's traditionally in the tournament, down, you had Michigan, who's traditionally in the tournament, down, and Wisconsin, who's traditionally in, down?
First of all, with Purdue, the end of the season, they were with the pack.
No doubt.
Okay? They built themselves quite a lead in the regular season. But if you judge Purdue at the end of the season, I was there they got stormed on a couple of times. They lost to Maryland, they lost to Northwestern. They were really with everybody else. It just didn't look that way in the standings. But they were playing like they could have finished in 5th or 6th at the end of the season. So I just want to say that for the record, that I think people forget about.
Wholeheartedly agree.
That now they did win the Big Ten tournament, but by the way, they went against Penn State, good Penn State team, but not Indiana, which got upset by Penn State. Indiana, projected champion of the league. I agree with you. The Ohio State thing, I think, really also muddled the waters for the Big Ten because their talent, as we saw in the Big Ten tournament, was for a team that should have competed near the top. That's the way they were playing in December. Then they went completely sideways. I don't know how good Wisconsin was really going to be. We're going to talk about them later because they're still playing in the NIT. And Michigan, again, Michigan had a lot of opportunities early, didn't win them. A lot of opportunities late, didn't win them. So they, I think, underperformed a little during the regular season.
Just based on where you would expect them to be, right? They've been a Sweet 16 team for 4 years in a row. So I think that's my point is this about kind of the time, is this year about the timing of Purdue was the best team, but clearly was flawed, as you mentioned, down the stretch. I think could be better a year from now when those guards are older and more mature, particularly if Zach Edey comes back. And then some other teams that you count on to be in the bracket, to have a chance to make a deep run, were not the teams that they typically are. I guess, so that was kind of my question to you, right? Not were those teams better than they were, but was part of the reason the Big Ten didn't succeed to the level that you would come to expect because those teams were what they were.
Yes, but I would also say that I think we're in an era now where this is going to be more the norm because of the transfer portal. Because there's going to be so many players that are going to be moving around, and NIL is going to keep players in college basketball. So I think we're going to have more balance, fewer teams at the bottom. Really this year we had one bad team.
Right.
Minnesota.
Yes.
1 through 13, anyone can beat anybody. And then Minnesota pops up and beats Rutgers at the end. But I think we're going to see more talent spread out, less of a dominant team at the top. So I will not be surprised if we go to a next couple of years where the champion has 5 losses, 4 to 6, that 4 to 6 range, and ekes out a Big Ten regular season championship.
Okay, but here's where it's weird, right? Because I think this would have been an unforeseen result of NIL. And I mean, it's fascinating, right? Like, this isn't just the Big Ten, and you made this point, right? There are no top 3 seeds in the Final Four. It's the first time that has ever happened.
No McDonald's All-Americans.
You have no McDonald's All-Americans. That literally was the next sentence coming out of my mouth, right? I mean, that is crazy. It's the first time ever since the advent of that game that you have not had a McDonald's All-American in the Final Four. You don't have any top 30 recruits. I mean, it's really crazy. But it's kind of the opposite of what you'd expect, right? I think the preconception of the NIL era has been much more of what happened in football. You did have TCU, which crashed the party a little bit this year, although a program that has been very good here through the years. But it's more the rich getting richer with NIL.
Yes.
So that was the expectation, I think, in basketball. Why don't you think that has happened? Or has that happened, but it's just the vagaries of this tournament are such that for whatever reason, we just had all these upsets?
Well, I think it's that, but also I think we've got these older teams. I mean, think about it. There's a couple of Big Ten players on these Final Four teams. Okay, Greenlee at Florida Atlantic.
Yeah.
Liddy from Ohio State, now San Diego State. Brian Greenlee was at Minnesota, now at FAU. These were guys that couldn't crack the top of their starting lineups, and now they've bounced to these other teams, and they're important parts. You could argue at a little bit of a lower level. And I think this movement is going to continue. The one thing I will say, and I talked to, Big Ten folks about this in New York, what you see on your screen there, you've got physical teams, you got really good guard play. I would say we got to go back to 2019 to when the Big Ten had a big-time elite scoring lead guard, and that was Carson Edwards. Michigan State, I think, has the pieces with their guard play. Tyson Walker, New York City guard, can go for 30 for you. A.J. Hoggard, big guard, not as athletic, but still. Jaden Akins was not 100% healthy, but the Spartans, and we'll see if everyone stays in place, and Walker can come back, they have the makeup, believe it or not, to be this new era guard play, athletic, tough, that I think you need to win. That was a problem with Purdue. No question about it. Look, Northwestern, those guards got better and were tougher and defend, certainly their backcourt had the makeup of a team that could compete. They did. They won a game. They were right, ended up not beating UCLA. Penn State had those kind of guards, not good enough, but they were close. That has to be the trend, I think, with the Big Ten going forward, to get a little more athletic, get a little bit bigger and stronger, and a little tougher on the perimeter.
That is interesting because the Big Ten has been built largely around big men here in recent years. Zach Edey being the most prominent and the current example at Purdue, although Trace Jackson-Davis also plays the 5 spot for Indiana. But you think about Kofi Cockburn, you kind of go through the league. And traditionally, Michigan State has had really good play out of that 5 position. Wasn't necessarily so much the case, more on the defensive end. I mean, Sissoko could be a presence there, and we saw a little bit with him and Carson Cooper here. But is this reflective of a bigger trend? Is that kind of what you're saying? I mean, should the Big Ten be going away from this notion of building your team around a 5 and instead more around this kind of positionless basketball, more so what we're seeing at the NBA level?
Yeah, and I think Marquise Noel is a great example of that. He was under-recruited from New York City, ends up at Little Rock and then K-State. And look, Brett Yormark from the Big 12, he's a Barclays Brooklyn Nets guy. He announced that they're going to be playing exhibition games at Rucker Park. They want to bring the Big 12 to New York City because they want to recruit New York City more. And it was interesting. Tom Izzo did say he didn't. I was there for that in New York. And he said, I think I may need to recruit this area a little bit more. He got Tyson Walker via Northeastern, but a New York City point guard, sort of that tough, won't back down, and a scoring guard. He really obviously has fallen for Walker. Walker's been great for him. And he was kind of hinting maybe I should go in this direction a little bit more. And it'll be interesting to see if others do that. Obviously, Rutgers is right there. Do they do that? Does Maryland with Kevin Willard's ties? I'm not saying every Big Ten team needs a New York City point guard.
I understand what you're saying.
But, I mean, I can see the trend at least going in that direction.
And that is the trend in college basketball. I guess I hesitate to be a prisoner of the moment on any of this stuff, right? This is a really weird tournament. You mentioned last year was a blue blood tournament. That's not to say there aren't early upsets. I think what most fans want, now obviously the fans of FAU and San Diego State and Miami, they're delighted with what we got. They don't think there's any problem here. I think what most fans want from the NCAA tournament is crazy, wacky upsets early on, but ultimately for it to end up with some familiar names and faces in the Final Four. I think that's kind of the ideal construct of
that's
this.
What normally happens.
And it is. I'm guessing that's what TV executives want out of this. I'm guessing that's what people who are selling tickets want out of this. It didn't really work out that way this year. I'd be surprised if we see this again next year. Like if it's no top 3 seeds or whatever. I still feel like you can't read too much into a single elimination, you never know what's going to happen kind of tournament.
Yeah, I mean, look, we get this in the conference tournaments all the time. And I think a good example is what we just saw in Chicago. You know, we had the 1 seed in Purdue, you know, and Penn State goes all the way through. And that's what happens in these single elimination tournaments. I agree with you. I think going forward, this will be an anomaly. I mean, like I said, a year ago we had this. And go back to 2019, you know, again, Purdue was right there.
Right.
You know, had it not
second
been
away.
Yeah.
1 second away. One more quasi-prisoner of the moment question for you, but there's certainly a lot of talk about it. Is the selection process flawed? Are we taking too many teams from the power conferences and not enough from Conference USA?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Because you cannot go backwards. You can't say, oh, you know, the Big Ten got 8, the SEC got 8, and they got no one in the Final Four. Every season has to be treated on its own. The Mountain West Conference, everyone ripped all the time. Look all the teams they got. Well, they finally got one in the Final Four.
Yeah, but the other 3 all lost their first game.
I know.
Yes.
The only thing I will say real quickly, I talked to a committee member when I was in Denver, you cannot tell me how Nevada got in over Rutgers. Because I saw the numbers. That's an example of the metrics to me that were flawed because they clearly put Nevada in because of their numbers. And it was like there were 5 metrics and 3 went to Nevada, 2 went to Rutgers. I saw it on the screen. And they chose Nevada. Nevada lost to UNLV, Wyoming, San Jose State. Come on. And then they got blown up by Arizona State.
You're preaching to the choir. Although, again, I don't want to read into what happens in the NCAA tournament because then we can't speak out of both sides. We can't talk out of both sides of our mouth. We can't say you can't judge a conference by what happens in the NCAA tournament and then say the Mountain West should have gotten Nevada in because look what happened to them against Arizona State. But I hear what you're saying. I don't know. I think it's just a weird anomaly of a year, and I think next year will be different, but who knows? Penn State held its Pro Day Friday. Joey Porter Jr. considered the top Nittany Lion prospect. Some others who participated included wide receiver Mitchell Tinsley, tight end Brenton Strange, safety Jair Brown, defensive tackle P.J. Mustipher, and quarterback Sean Clifford. And as you can see, all 32 NFL teams were on hand to watch in State College. Speaking of Sean Clifford, he is today's big interview. And Sean, thanks for taking the time. So how did you feel you did in your Pro Day?
I thought it went really well. You know, I think, looking at everybody and the body of work that we had over the course of our careers, it was nice to be able to come in, be with all the guys, see them all. Haven't seen them for a while. We've all been training really hard. Come in and show the scouts what we got, from the intangibles of the 40-yard dash, the 5-10-5, the L cone, all those drills that, everybody knows we got to run. But also be able to come out there, show my arm strength, show what I've been working on, which is obviously, just a little bit on the accuracy side, as every quarterback is, being able to really hone in the mechanics, which I really haven't been able to do in a long, long time, just because you're always trying to get ready to play a season. So just really dealing with that and being able to make improvements, show the scouts what I got, and show them that I'm a little bit more athletic than I might look. So.
Was there more pressure on it because you were not invited to the combine, that this was kind of your one chance with the scouts?
Oh, I wouldn't call it pressure at all. I would say it was just a bigger opportunity, I guess, just because, not being able to be invited to the combine definitely gave me a little bit of chip on my shoulder. I'm a fiery guy. When I didn't see my name on there, it was just one of those things where it's like, okay, let's prove it to them of why I should have been in a combine invite, why I'm a pro football player, and what value I can show to a team. It's definitely a little fuel to the fire, but I'm a fiery guy, so I was really excited to be able to get out there in front of all 32 teams and show what I got.
What's your pitch beyond the obvious physical attributes that you have? Like, what do you believe that you would bring to an NFL team?
I think first and foremost, you're gonna get a guy that's just gonna bring in value in numerous different ways. Somebody who's gonna come into a room and really provide, whatever is needed, whether that be playing on Sunday, being a backup, or being a Pete squad guy. I'm gonna embrace my role. I did it a bunch of times at Penn State. When Trace was the quarterback here, and I had to be a backup, and getting in, formulating cut-ups, being able to provide value on the week-to-week basis without playing. I'm going to do that. But also, once I get in the game, I'm going to provide a bunch of value, make plays for the team, get us in good situations, protect the football, and really just be that leader that you need at the quarterback position. I'm confident in that. And I'm excited to show that to an NFL team.
You mentioned being a leader. You're a 4-time captain at Penn State, which is pretty remarkable. You're the all-time leader in passing yards and passing touchdowns. As you reflect on your Penn State career, all 6 years of it, what are you proudest of?
I think just that. It's the 4-time captain. Solely for the fact that it's the greatest award that you can get in sports. Football especially, just because you rely on all 10 other guys. It's never just you. You have to have a team around you that's going to be there for you to make those plays and make us run as a well-oiled machine. So for me personally, it's that. It's the 4-time captain. It's something that every single year I took it as a true honor. Never disrespected it. Came into the building with a smile on my face. A guy that other guys could lean on and learn from. And I plan to take that to the next level, just because that's who I am. I know I'm a leader at heart, and I'm just blessed to have been in the position that I was with so many great teams at Penn State, and excited to take the next chapter.
We were reflecting here a few minutes ago before we went on, just talking about the last time you and I saw each other, which was outside the Rose Bowl. The weather conditions were absolutely miserable out there, and yet you guys were on cloud nine, really, you and Jair, when you came out there just after a fabulous win. And I can't help but thinking about the program that you're leaving behind and all the young talent around you on that Rose Bowl day, a lot of it which really shined. What do you think about when you think about the future of Penn State football?
Oh, they're in good hands, that's for sure. It starts at the top with Coach Franklin, all the work that he's put in over the years, from a recruiting perspective, getting the right guys in the building, to now, building the program up from, the intangibles of winter workouts and spring ball and summer camp and summer workouts and all those things. The strength staff's fantastic, but then also when it comes to the young guys, man, do they have some talent. It's going to be very exciting. I'm a huge Penn State fan from here on out. I grew up in Ohio, so I really didn't have a true team. I'm, born in Illinois and then came to Ohio, so never really had that college team that I rooted for. But man, you got a Nittany Lion for life in me, and I'm excited to watch where the program goes.
Sean, one thing is pretty cool. You are coming to us from the building that you are having constructed for Limitless NIL, which is the company that you started with your brother. Give us a sense of, first of all, what you guys are doing there in terms of the physical plant, and also some of the projects that you've been able to work on with college student athletes.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I'm an entrepreneur at heart as well. I think it goes right into kind of the leadership aspect of what I bring to the table in football, and why it's so easy for me when it comes to leading this company. But I sold it to a company in Philly called Team with our CEO, Pat Waters, and really just because, I understood how much it's going to take to go to the NFL. I knew that I couldn't continue this lifestyle for so long. I'm going to have to put all my eggs into the NFL basket, which I'm prepared to do. But I've built something very cool with Limitless NIL, and I'm proud to say that with my brother and the team that we have. Sitting, like you said, in the building that we're actually constructing right now in Downingtown, Pennsylvania. But just being able to provide tremendous value to young entrepreneurs and young athletes who are trying to do things outside of sports. And Penn State allowed me to do that and I created a very unique schedule to be able to cater to all those different avenues. It allowed me to create a company that I feel holds a lot of value for student athletes across the country. We're growing and rapidly expanding, and it's really cool to see. But it's also cool to allow myself to kind of take a step back, really focus on myself, focus on the NFL, and have a say on this group and this team as well. So it's a great balance. It's really cool to see something you built come to life, and to also, in the end, help student athletes across the country, which is our main mission.
While we're on the topic of NIL, Penn State recently lost basketball coach Micah Shrewsbury. There is some thought that NIL at least factored into that decision. How do you feel, Sean, about the role that NIL is playing in player movement and coach movement?
I think it's huge. Just to call a spade, I think that NIL is a big mover, whether for good or bad. I think that it's going to affect decisions moving forward for student athletes, for coaches, for the plans that they have in the program. I think that it's a huge differentiator when it comes to what is your program doing for NIL versus the other program across the way. How can you differentiate yourself? How can you add as much value? I keep saying that just because it's so important. How can you add as much value to the student athlete as possible? And also to show parents and family members what you're going to do for their son or daughter at that university. I think it's really, really key moving forward that we always have the student athlete at the forefront. I think that sometimes the money gets involved and there's all these deals going around and collectives popping up here and there. But the truest form of NIL, the name, image, and likeness of the student athlete, is to grow them as a person, as a person that can do business, and to respect that. So I think that there's a lot of good that NIL provides. That's why I created the company that I did. And I'm excited to see where it goes, because I think it's going to be very, very good moving forward. And I'm excited to see it develop over time. And honestly, to position our company as one of those leaders.
Tell me about the Sean Clifford retirement party coming up this summer.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun with the State College Spikes, the local baseball team. They presented the idea and thought it would be funny. Obviously not retiring from football, but retiring from being a Penn State quarterback and being able to, just celebrate all the fantastic moments over the career with so many great teams. So it's going to be fun. They're going to be selling one-way tickets to Florida and rocking chairs. And I think I'm going to have a bobblehead or two also given away. So it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be mostly fun to see the community one more time before I ship off to my new location, because I just love Penn State so much. It's just holds such a special place in my heart, and I'm going to miss it for sure. But time to turn the chapter, see another quarterback come in and take over the team, and I'm excited to see that.
Well, there's a lot of time between now and you ending up in Florida on a rocking chair, I guess, unless you go to the Dolphins or the Bucs or the Jaguars or something like that. But once football is over for you, where do you see yourself in your post-retirement career? Is it involved in this NIL space, in the business world?
Oh, I'm going to be involved in the sports for a long time, whether that be in the sports business world, whether that be in NIL, whether that be in coaching. I'm so focused and mission driven right now on making the NFL and providing a bunch of value to an NFL team. But when that day comes, I'm sure I'm going to have a lot of options, just because of the fantastic people that I've gotten to know and expand my network over the past few years. So I'll be ready for when that time comes. Hopefully it's a long time down the road, because I love playing football. I love the game, and I want to continue and play that as long as possible. But when that time comes, we'll see where I end up. But it will be definitely in sports, that's for sure.
Well, Sean, I said this at the Rose Bowl. I'll say it again. It's been an absolute pleasure to cover you here over, I guess it is, the last 6 years. Best of luck with everything, including the NFL draft, and we will, I'm sure, see you down the road.
No, I thank the Big Ten, the Big Ten Network for always covering, Penn State and myself. It's been an honor to be a Penn State quarterback for, starting for the last 4 years, part of the family for 6. And thank you guys for doing such a fantastic job on covering my story. It's been an honor.
Let's get to our big stat. It's brought to you by Gatorade. Mentioned it earlier in our big story. The Iowa women bound for the Final Four for the first time in 30 years. The Caitlin Clark superlatives, a huge part of the story. A 40-point triple-double, making history. Also became the first player ever to total 900 points and 300 assists in a season. Megan McEwen is joining us now to talk this over. And Megan, we'll get to the two teams playing tonight because obviously there's the potential for this just being an enormous evening as well and a huge Final Four for the Big Ten. But either way, to get Iowa there, it's a remarkable story. It is, as Andy said earlier, must-see TV. And Caitlin Clark was unbelievable. I mean, again, I've run out of descriptive words for her. What did you take from her performance last night?
Caitlin Clark transcends men's basketball, women's basketball, NBA, WNBA, college hoops. It does not matter. She is simply the hottest player in the world right now when it comes to basketball. 41 points, 10 rebounds, 12 assists. To have that type of stat line in an Elite Eight game against a very good Louisville team who, features Haley Van Lith, who's also a very good junior in that same class. Caitlin Clark and Haley Van Lith played together on Team USA throughout their young careers. But for her to perform like that on the stage to get Iowa to the Final Four for the first time in 30 years, I mean, this is unheard of. It is unbelievable, the performance that we're seeing her put on right now. But you know what, Dave? She did this in the Big Ten championship game against Ohio State. She had a triple-double then. She's had 5 triple-doubles this season alone. She's doing so many different things to impact the game. Obviously scoring 41 points. I mean, you don't win a game with that very many times when you don't have that type of production, but necessarily her assist numbers are high, her rebounding numbers. She's just impacting the game in a variety of ways, and it's been the recipe for success. Monica Czinano only had 9 points in that win over Louisville last night, but yet Iowa still was able to keep a pretty big lead throughout the entirety of that game, and it credit Caitlin Clark and her ability to facilitate and get her teammates involved.
That was what really struck me is we think of it, obviously Caitlin Clark is the superstar and the straw that stirs the drink, but Monica Czinano is so good and such a great complementary player. Not only did she only have 9 points, she only had 2 field goal attempts. So Louisville did a really good job of taking her away. What was interesting was what they gave up was the perimeter. They seemed willing to let other Iowa players shoot from the outside and left them pretty wide open. And that turned out to be a miscalculation. I mean, it shows you how hard Iowa is to defend. Caitlin Clark had 8 made threes, but there were 8 other made threes from the Hawkeyes. They had 16 in all. And I think that just speaks to what a difficult matchup they are, Megan.
Because they can play inside out. And when you have a dominant post player like a Monica Czinano who demands so much attention in the paint, I mean, my goodness, she's shooting nearly 70% from the field. And then you have multiple shooters on the outside. McKenna Warnock is a proven three-point shooter, as is Gabby Marshall. Kate Martin has started to knock it down at a higher clip from 3 this season. So you have 4 different shooters, including Caitlin Clark, on the perimeter that can work around Monica Czinano, who is excellent at passing out of double teams, passing in traffic. And her and Clark play so well in that 2-man game when they can get into pick and roll situations. I mean, it is like bread and butter, just beautiful the way they play with one another. Iowa's so dangerous though because they have that balance offensively. The dominant post player, the 3-point shooting, the playmaking ability of Caitlin Clark. They are so difficult to stop right now because so many different pieces have stepped up, especially over the course of the last month. You saw it with the Big Ten tournament. Gabby Marshall had a huge tournament from a scoring perspective and defensively. I think she's been the X factor for Iowa during this run.
The Big Ten looking to get multiple teams now into the Final Four. Iowa's the first one since Maryland in 2015. It's only been one time where the Big Ten has had more than one team in. That was 1993 as well, last time Iowa made it. Could happen tonight. You got 2 teams playing for a spot. The Terps scoring off with number 1 overall seed, undefeated South Carolina. Ohio State fresh off a great win against UConn over the weekend, now gets top seed Virginia Tech. Let's start with the Terps, and were they to win, they would face the Hawkeyes, and this has become a nice little rivalry. But were they to win is a big task. This is a really good team they're playing tonight in South Carolina, a team that beat them by 25 earlier this year, although I think it's fair to point out they did not have Diamond Miller in that game. We know how fabulous she has been for them this year. But give people who haven't watched South Carolina a sense of the task that is confronting Maryland here tonight?
South Carolina is undefeated for a reason. They have the reigning National Player of the Year in Aaliyah Boston down in the post, who commands so much attention. She's incredibly skilled. She plays with her back to the basket. She can finish over both shoulders. And then you have guards on the perimeter that are really quick. They can get to the basket. They can play a little inside-outside game. South Carolina is a team that has so much balance, which is the key. If you want to get to a Final Four, you have to have balance. The difference this time around, you mentioned Diamond Miller did not play against South Carolina the first time those two teams met back on November 11th. In that game, interestingly enough, South Carolina had 20 turnovers. Maryland only had 11 points off those turnovers. So they need to do a better job of capitalizing once they get South Carolina to turn the ball over. Maryland is a completely different team now than they were 5 months ago. When they started out this season, they only had 3 players returning that had played significant minutes under Brenda Freeze a season ago. They added in transfers, they added in some freshmen, and now you've started to see the benefits of playing together, getting that chemistry going. Maryland has started to peak at the right time. The end of the season, they are athletic, they're long, they speed you up, they have multiple players that can step up and score. I've been so impressed with the progress that Maryland has made over the course of this season. It's going to be a fascinating matchup. They have to find a way to slow down Aaliyah Boston, but also find a way to turn over South Carolina's guards. This could be a really close game, closer than what people think, but it's a tough task. South Carolina has yet to lose a game this year.
41 straight wins. It is definitely a tough task. But again, look, Maryland's beaten 5 top 10 teams this year. We'll see whether they can do it again. It would be a shocking win, but far from out of the question given how well Maryland has been playing. Let's talk about the other game. Ohio State, fresh off that win over UConn. They ended the Huskies' 14-year streak of making it to the Final Four. Now they get Virginia Tech, who is a number 1 overall seed. For people maybe who haven't seen Virginia Tech this year, what is Ohio State up against here tonight?
Virginia Tech has a center in Elizabeth Kitley who's 6'6", and she's fantastic. I mean, she's wrapped up in multiple accolades in the ACC. She averages 18 points a game, plays with her back to the basket. She's got a sky hook move within her repertoire, and she's just so dominant. But this Virginia Tech team has 4 different players that average double figures in scoring, including a familiar Big Ten name, Kayana Traylor, who was at Purdue to start out her career, has transferred to Virginia Tech and has found a lot of success there. Again, it's a Tech team that has the ability to play inside out. They run their offense through Elizabeth Kitley. And it's going to be really important for Ohio State to speed up Virginia Tech and turn them over. The Buckeyes have been so successful this offseason because, one, J.C. Sheldon has come back into the mix, which has been huge from a scoring perspective, from a leadership perspective. But finally, the Buckeyes have a little bit of rhythm when it comes to rotations off the bench and still maintaining the intensity of the press. Not many teams are used to facing a press like Ohio State's because they mix it up from time to time, and they're just so in sync with one another when it comes to trapping, getting into passing lanes and whatnot. They've turned a lot of people over. They've been able to now capitalize off those turnovers. And now that J.C. Sheldon is back and rocking, that just adds another scoring piece that people have to worry about when they face Ohio State. Because now not only is it Taylor Mikesell and Cody McMahon that you have to slow down, now you got to worry about J.C. Sheldon as well.
Well, UConn certainly wasn't prepared for that press. You were talking about 25 turnovers. And Virginia Tech had 12 in the second half against Tennessee, even though they beat the Lady Vols. So we shall see here tonight. Megan, great stuff. Really appreciate you taking the time. And I'm sure we will talk to you here in the week to come as we get set for at least 1 and perhaps as many as 3 Big Ten teams in the Final Four.
We'll be in Dallas. Let's go. I'll talk to you guys soon.